Live from the College of Journalism and Mass Communications, you're watching Star City News special pre-election coverage.
Good evening. You're watching Star City News special hour-long pre-election coverage. I'm Aaron Trout.
And I'm Joy Carey. Tonight we will cover Nebraskans running for the election, ballot issues, and even the weather's effect on voter turnout.
We're looking at the governor's race between Democrat Chuck Hasselbrook and Republican Pete Ricketts.
The Senate race, Republican Ben Sasse against Democrat Dave Domina.
And Republican Doug Peterson running against Janet Stewart for Nebraska Attorney General.
Today, our reporter Dustin Hoffman interviewed Lancaster County Election Commissioner David Shively. Shively says people think tomorrow is the big day, but it's actually today.
Well, you know, the chaos began a long time ago, but the chaos really happens today. We got a lot of our poll workers are all coming in to pick up their supplies and everything for tomorrow. And then all the last minute people that can't go to their polls tomorrow and want to vote early today, they're in voting early today. So it's a very hectic day with a lot of phone calls. People might make sure they know where they go vote, that type of thing. Everything just kind of quiets down here. The phone doesn't ring. We don't have people coming in the doors as much. So everything quiets down. But there's a lot of post-election.
Shively has been through this before and expects a better turnout this year for voting.
The position of Lieutenant Governor of Nebraska has been getting a lot of attention this election season. Lieutenant Governor Levon Heidemann withdrew from 2 different positions and had 2 replacements following an accusation of domestic violence. I took a deeper look into what happened.
I love this state and am forever thankful for the people of this state who have faithfully supported me. I wish you well.
On September 9th, Levon Heidemann stepped down as Lieutenant Governor and withdrew as Pete Ricketts' running mate.
He was well respected, in the legislature, did a very good job in many regards. So I think many people were surprised by this.
People were surprised when a judge granted a protective order against Heidemann, an order requested by his sister, who claimed that Heidemann grabbed and pushed her during an argument. The negative coverage damaged Heidemann's public image, and he resigned the next day.
His sister filed an order of protection against him.
The lieutenant governor is
Nebraska
leaving
judge
office
granted a
one
protection
day
order
after
sister filed it
granted
against
an
him.
order of protection against him.
Gubernatorial candidate Pete Ricketts chose Mike Foley as his new running mate, but the controversy wasn't over. The switch happened after a September 1st deadline for changing the ballots, meaning Heidemann's name would still be on the ticket. Lawyers filed a petition to remove Heidemann's name and replace it with Foley's. Nebraska's Secretary of State allowed the name change, which led the Libertarian candidate for Governor Mark Elworth Jr. to file a lawsuit.
I just think it's really unfair that somebody with some money and some political pull here comes in and changes the election up like this.
A judge dismissed Elworth's complaint, which means that the Republican ticket tomorrow will read Ricketts and Foley. Political analysts say they don't think that this incident will have a large impact on the election, since most voters look at the top of the ticket, not the second in command. For Star City News, I'm Joy Carey.
Now, Joy, is this something that Heidemann could come back from? Is it possible for him to have a career in politics again?
The political analyst I spoke with said that it's very unlikely that this is something he could come back from, but you can never say never in politics. He also said it's really important to keep these names straight because it can be confusing. Levon Heidemann is the lieutenant governor who stepped down. Dave Heinemann is the governor who has been term limited out.
Now, what did the protective order say?
Well, a protective order in and of itself is not a criminal thing. It's more like a preventative measure. So Heidemann was not allowed to be anywhere that his sister was. He was not allowed to contact her in any way.
Oh, so what was the sister's perspective on all of this?
I tried to call her multiple times, was not able to get a hold of her, but I haven't seen her speak with any other media. So I think it's safe to say she doesn't want to share her perspective.
So what exactly is going on with the position? I mean, Heidemann is actually the second lieutenant governor that stepped down this term. Is that correct?
Yeah, the lieutenant governor before him, Rick Sheehy, stepped down in a scandal after the World Herald revealed that he had been using a state-issue cell phone to make hundreds of late-night calls.
Okay. Well, after surviving a heated primary race, Republican gubernatorial candidate Pete Ricketts found himself in another tough race with Chuck Hasselbrook for the right to be Nebraska's 40th governor.
Ricketts has never held public office before, but has tried to use that to his advantage, priding himself as a political outsider that will think differently from other politicians.
Star City's John Kipper has more on the business titan running to lead our state.
I'll use my real-world experience to work with people all across the state and the senators in our unicameral to craft that plan for how we grow Nebraska.
Pete Ricketts could have spent his life making millions in the business world, but instead, he wants to work in the Capitol as our next governor. Ricketts has been COO of Fortune 500 company Ameritrade, which his dad started. Currently, he is the president of the Platt Institute for Economic Research, and he's on the board of directors for the MLB Chicago Cubs, a team his brother Tom owns. So how do these business accomplishments translate to being the next Nebraska governor?
There's a lot of operations like the state government that run like a business. You have revenues coming in, you have expenses you have to manage, and so the experiences and skills I have as being a business executive are directly applicable to that.
Ricketts has a litany of high-profile endorsements, including New Jersey Governor Chris Christie and former vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin.
He is such a good candidate. His family's a great family.
So how does having these former governors endorsing Ricketts help his campaign?
And when they're saying, hey, I know Pete Ricketts and he's got the skills and experiences to do this job as governor and I know because I've done it, I think that gives voters confidence.
While his opponent Chuck Hasselbrook prioritizes his campaign on education, Ricketts' first agenda item when elected is fixing property taxes.
The number one issue people talk about is property tax relief. So I put together a plan for how to do that that calls for putting more money into the Property Tax Credit Relief Fund. And importantly, and this is really important, the second point is making sure that we curtail the unfunded mandates the state pushes down to counties and school districts.
Education is also a major issue for Ricketts. He wants to require high schools to teach industrial arts and incentivize students to go to community colleges and get 2-year degrees.
And it starts changing that dynamic that we've had for too long in our school system, where we've said, oh, the only way that you can be successful is go get that 4-year degree. And it's just not true.
One common misconception about Pete Ricketts among Nebraskans is that he was born and raised a rich kid. The fact is the Ricketts family was middle class for pretty much all of Ricketts' childhood. For example, when Pete wanted a bicycle, he couldn't just go ask his mom and dad for money. He had to get a paper route and buy the bike himself. One thing is for certain, if Ricketts does win, he will reside here with his family in the Nebraska's governor's mansion, which is certainly anything but middle class. For Star City News, I'm John Kipper.
Well, John tells us that Ricketts said one of the big difference between being a business executive and being a governor is executives do all they can to grow their business, while a governor should try to shrink the government. He's live in the newsroom with Kelly.
Hi, I have John Kipper here. Some pundits have claimed that the very wealthy Ricketts tried to buy the election. How much money did he spend in the campaign?
Well, you know, he's not really releasing the exact amount of money he spent. He did run in 2006 and spent so much money that it actually allowed Ben Nelson some type of deal where he could spend more money than was legally allowed. His dad, Joe, does own a big super PAC, and so it's really unclear exactly how much is spent, but it is substantially less than before.
Oh, wow. And you were at the final debates between Ricketts and Hasselbrook in early October. Who do you think came out as the victor in that debate?
You know, debates, it's always one side or the other will say their side won, the other side won. At one point, Hasselbrook said, I don't know, as his first answer to a question. Ricketts kept kind of repeating the same things. Things got kind of contentious at times. I would give it a draw, but like I said, each side will say their side won.
I mean, it always is a debate on whether who won the debate. This isn't the first time Ricketts has run for office, as he ran for Senate in 2006. What happened in that election?
Well, it was in 2006, like you said, against Ben Nelson, who was the incumbent. Ricketts spent $11 million of his own money. He spent more nationally than any other Senate race by himself, and he still lost by 28 percentage points. So he kind of had to redo things when he ran for governor, spent less money. He also vowed this time to go across Nebraska more, as he spent most of his time in Omaha in 2006.
All right, and our final question. Ricketts' brother owns the Chicago Cubs. What kind of relationship does Ricketts have with Major League Baseball organizations?
Well, yeah, he's a member of the Cubs board of directors, which pretty much means he has some say on every decision. But with Major League Baseball organizations, it all starts at the owner. I mean, if he wants Joe's insight, if he wants some of the other siblings' insight, he'll give it to him. But usually, I mean, the brother Tom, who does own the team, has most of the power. Pete just kind of sits on the side, and we'll make a decision here and there.
All right, well, we're going to toss you back to John and
Democratic gubernatorial candidate Chuck Hasselbrook says growing up on a farm gave him the experience he needed to design a platform that fights for the working class. Star City's Kelsey Murphy sat down with Hasselbrook for more, and we have her live in the newsroom.
I'm going to have to need it.
Hi, Bender. Hi, Professor Bender. How are you?
Fine, how are you?
I am good. You need to be mic'd.
We are one Nebraska, and our state can only achieve its full potential if every one of our neighbors has the opportunity to achieve theirs.
I see people facing
Democratic candidate Chuck Hasselbrook says he supports Nebraska's middle class.
I stood up for family farmers and ranchers.
Because we need a governor who understands what it's like for working families that struggle to make ends meet.
Hasselbrook says he is confident that his history allows him to understand.
We didn't have a lot growing up on the farm.
He is a small-town man who made big things happen for small businesses during his 36 years at the Center for Rural Affairs.
When I was executive director, we helped 10,000 small businesses by providing loans and business training.
Although Hasselbrook comes from a small town, he still looks at Nebraska as a bigger picture. He says that 18 years on the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's Board of Regents,
Regent Hasselbrook.
Yes.
taught him a lot about metropolitan Nebraska.
I think that gave me a much broader perspective about the needs of the state.
And one of those needs is early childhood education.
So start practicing your name and your letters.
Too many children in Nebraska who don't get what they need at home and start kindergarten already so far behind that the odds are against them ever succeeding in school.
After months of campaigning, Hasselbrook is prepared to wrap up a tough election.
How can middle-class Nebraskans trust you to work for them?
And this promises to be a close election.
No matter how close the race, Chuck Hasselbrook hopes that Nebraska will choose the middle class and help him represent our state.
When there's a Democrat out there that Nebraskans and Republicans in Nebraska know will fight for them, they'll support that Democrat.
Hasselbrook says he is not concerned about running as a Democrat in a conservative state. He believes that the individuals will vote for the individual and not the party. Reporting live for Star City, I'm Kelsey Murphy.
Thanks, Kelsey. Well, the gubernatorial candidate Chuck Hasselbrook selected Jane Raybould as his running mate. Raybould has local government experience by serving as Lancaster County Commissioner. She also is Vice President of family-owned B&R Stores, Inc. Raybould says the Hasselbrook administration will have their hands full correcting a lot of problems from Republican Governor Dave Heideman's tenure.
To summarize the congressional race, Republican Jeff Fortenberry is running against Democrat Dennis Crawford in the 1st District. Fortenberry is currently a congressman while Crawford works as an attorney.
The 2nd Congressional District has Republican Lee Terry running against Democrat Brad Ashford. Lee Terry has held the Omaha-based 2nd District seat in Congress for the past 16 years. This year's contest is expected to be competitive, as Ashford is a veteran state senator. We will cover the Senate race later on our newscast. Coming up next, how big of an impact negative ags can have on Nebraska candidates.
University of Nebraska-Lincoln broadcasting students call the game from atop Memorial Stadium.
You're listening to the Huskers on 90.3 KRNU.
An emphasis in sports communication prepares students to cover sports, from reporting and advertising to promotion and social media.
Allowing us to emphasize in sports really opens up so many doors for us and opportunities, and it's great. It's a one-of-a-kind experience.
Start here, go anywhere. The College of Journalism and Mass Communications.
Enough is enough. Enough tears, enough shame, enough secrets. Gender Services has a mission to end abuse and neglect of our children. Services such as family support and drug testing can be done at 914 L Street, Lincoln, Nebraska. Gender Services works with each family in the way that best meets their individual needs. Always remember that you have a voice to empower each child to say no to child abuse and report it.
I always knew I was going to study fashion design in college, and I kind of got addicted to the energy.
Just to be able to see all the hard work the students have put into it and how talented they are.
The most innovative designers are students, and I get really excited knowing that kids are still into it. There's just no other industry like it.
The Dressage Foundation has awarded over $1.5 million in grants and scholarships to cultivate the advancement of dressage. The United States Pony Club is just one program that has received a grant from the foundation. Susie Hall was a recipient of the Haldenberg Training Center Fund. Also, the Young Rider International Dream Program, which is trained by a German Olympian, received a grant from the foundation. For more information, go to www.dressagefoundation.org or call 402-434-8585.
Star City News will be back with more pre-election coverage after the break.
Welcome back.
Now, on average, political candidates spend about 80% of their budget on advertisements. Currently, political attack ads are on the rise. Chelsea Eaton looked into this trend and why candidates are choosing to go negative.
Nebraska needs a governor who fights for the middle class, and that's not Pete Ricketts.
We don't need another liberal like Brad Ashford helping Obama and Pelosi.
As midterm elections draw near, we've been seeing more political advertisements around us.
They're usually just lies and mudslinging, really.
I think that they are annoying and not particularly helpful.
According to the Center for Public Integrity, Nebraskans might be seeing even more advertisements than other states, as Nebraska ranks 4th in money spent in campaign TV ads. But as annoying as these ads can be, they have been proven effective.
Negative ads are more effective at grabbing the voters' attention.
John Peterson, a political science teaching assistant, told me that negative ads have even increased from the last election 2 years ago.
People have an inherent negativity bias. We're always kind of drawn to the things that are not as pleasant.
While they may be effective at getting attention, are they influential?
A negative ad, much like any ad, is going to have a hard time of actually changing somebody's minds.
Lincoln voters we spoke with agree.
Not really at all.
I don't think that they are always very credible.
Negative advertisements can have negative effects.
Increased use of negative ads by one or either campaign might actually end up dampening voter turnout, and you might be keeping people who might otherwise support you away from the polls.
For Star City News, I'm Chelsea Eaton reporting.
Attack ads are nothing new. In 1988, Willie Horton was the face of crime in political ads. Released from prison on a weekend past, Horton kidnapped a couple, stabbing the man and raping his girlfriend. George Bush Sr. used the incident to attack his opponent, Michael Dukakis. The National Republican Congressional Committee ran a similar ad this campaign season. The piece attacked Brad Ashford's stance on good time laws, trying to tie Ashford to convicted murderer Nico Jenkins. The Lee Terry campaign is distancing itself from that ad, but ran a different one that warned of killings at home and beheadings abroad.
Of course, we're not suggesting that Brad Ashford is to blame for any of those things. What we are saying, however, is that Brad Ashford has a record of being soft on crime. He has
Certainly the ads that they run on Nico Jenkins and some of those ads are deplorable.
All right, well, we have Professor John Bender here to talk to us about iconography in political ads. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Bender.
Thank you.
There were a lot of ads attacking Brad Ashford for his position on good time laws. Can you explain exactly what that means?
Well, good time laws are provisions that allow inmates in prisons to get out a little bit early. If they behave themselves, then they get credit for time they've been served and they're allowed to get out a little early. The calculation is, varies from state to state and law to law, but that's the idea. Give them an incentive to be good, and also it's a way of getting people out of prisons, avoiding overcrowding.
How did early release programs become such a big issue this election season?
Well, a couple of things. One was the Nico Jenkins incident, in which he was released and then went out and killed 4 people almost immediately. And also the discovery that the Bureau of Corrections, Department of Corrections, had been miscalculating good time credit for some time for a large number of inmates who, many of whom did go out and then commit new crimes after they were released.
So what is Nico Jenkins' role specifically in all of this? What makes his image so important?
Well, for Lee Terry, trying to tie Brad Ashford to Nico Jenkins is politically very astute, because Jenkins is such an ugly character to begin with. The crime is heinous, and he's a very unflattering image to be tied to, with the tattoos on his face and all of that.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Bender. We appreciate your time.
All right, now speaking of political advertisements, lawn signs are something we see every day during election season. We looked into whether or not lawn signs actually have an impact on the campaign.
In the fall, weather changes, the color of the leaves change, and seats in public office are changed. The arrival of political lawn signs is an early indicator that election season is upon us. These lawn signs help us to identify candidates in our local election.
Just how do lawn signs impact us?
If they see one sign of yard sign a lot more than the other, it's pretty easy to conclude that candidate has support. A lot of people must have some reason for believing in them, so it'll either cause them to go look at that candidate, or just by virtue of seeing that sign so many times, that name starts making an imprint on their brain.
And we do have Xavier with us to talk a little bit more about the specifics of lawn signs. Now, is there a place or location that signs cannot be posted?
Oh, yes, there is actually. On any public structure or any public property, you cannot place any lawn signs, because that would impact people's driving vision while they're going down the street. And you just need certain regulations to follow.
Now, do lawn signs have any actual impact?
According to political scientist Mel Cowan, they help build name recognition in lower elections, but as far as the presidential election is concerned, lawn signs have very little impact, if any at all. But also, according to political scientist Mel Cowan, he states that lawn signs can represent from 6 to 10 votes per candidate.
Where do the lawn signs come from? If someone wanted to put one in their yard, where would they get it?
I'm glad that you asked me that. There's a website where you can actually purchase and customize your own website or own lawn signs, and that the price pretty much varies between size and quantity of the lawn signs.
Thanks so much for talking with us, Xavier.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Xavier. Well, the recent growth spurt of social media has affected many Americans.
With the majority of people now on social media, it has been a great instrument for marketing, public appeal, and news. This social media growth even plays a role in elections. Many Nebraska candidates are turning to social networks to promote their public image and to keep followers updated with their campaign.
Any platform, you can find some way to take advantage of it, to grow your presence or just be more visible, and especially if you're talking about public figures, that's important. Just transparency, so it makes it really easy for you to do that and also open up conversation. That's probably what I would say Twitter's the best for.
And we're going to see Kelly in the newsroom live to talk a little bit more about with reporter Nate Wong.
Hey there again, I'm here with reporter Nate Wong on social media. Well, the social media has definitely grown in the last few years. How could that affect this election, this midterm election?
Well, yeah, you're right. Social media has grown, and I'm just going to list off some stats so the viewers have a better idea of how much it's grown. Total usage among U.S. adults is up to 72% from May 2013 from 67% in December 2012. And that's May 2013. And we're well past May 2013, so it has only been growing. And also, according to a survey done by Huffington Post, 44% of Twitter users turn to Twitter to get the breaking news. So with that said, social media has affected all aspects of America, and because of that, analysts attribute a lot of Obama's success in the 2012 and 2008 election to his online and social networking strategy. And because of that, there's a lot of analysts are saying that it has allowed him to break records for donations, which fund his campaign, and that's one way that social media has affected elections in the past, and even a huge election such as the presidential election.
All right, well, we're going to send you back to Joy and Aaron in the studio.
After the break, we'll discuss the minority vote and its impact in Nebraska. Stay tuned.
At the University of Nebraska College of Journalism and Mass Communications, you can start here and go anywhere. Our programs are designed for life seekers. You'll get hands-on experience from day one. To begin your future, go to journalism.unl.edu. Start here, go anywhere.
This is a world filled with passion, filled with people who find themselves in song and bond with others through melody. This is a world filled with people eager to be a part of music. But as music programs in schools across the country disappear, the music disappears with them. Help keep the spirit of music alive. Support your community's local music programs. A message from the National Association for Music Education.
Donations from our supporters through Campaign for Nebraska enrich the classroom experience, advance research, fuel innovation and economic development, and enhance the campus environment. Campaign for Nebraska and the University of Nebraska-Lincoln thank our donors for gifts that write a story of success for the future.
And welcome back.
You're watching special pre-election coverage.
Voter turnout is always a factor when it comes to elections. Turnout varies between midterm and presidential elections and from age group to age group. Here with some information on the voter turnout for the youngest voting age group is Star City's Emily Jensen with more.
An unprecedented number of citizens turned out to vote.
Since the 26th Amendment was adopted in 1971, any U.S. citizen 18 years or older has the right to vote. Voting is looked at by some as a civic duty, while others choose not to vote at all.
It's better just to not vote, in my opinion, than to be an uninformed voter.
The 18 to 24 age group has consistently had the lowest voter turnout since 1972.
Younger people tend to be more mobile in their lifestyles and move around a lot more and are not really settled yet. And so it doesn't mean it's not important for them to vote, because certainly it is, because the laws that are being passed by people at the federal, state, and local levels all affect them just as much as it affects the older generations.
I think it's important for people our age to vote because the needs of our generation are different from the needs of the generation that came before us. And if young people don't vote, then it's only the previous generation that are making decisions about our future.
Those who will be unable to make it to their voting district on Election Day have other methods of voting available to them as well.
Other opportunities, if you're talking to students that are here in Lincoln that are registered to vote in their home county, then they need to get an absentee ballot from their local county official.
I'm standing outside the County Health Department, one of the 195 places that will be available in Lancaster County to vote. As Election Commissioner Shively has said, many places will be available to vote, as well as absentee ballots to make sure casting your vote will be as easy as possible. With Star City News, this has been Emily Jensen reporting.
Well, once again, we'll go to Kelly in the newsroom, who's standing there with Emily, to discuss the impact of young voters.
Thanks, guys. Once again, this is Emily Jensen joining me on the impact of young voters. Now, is there a difference in voter turnout between the midterm and presidential elections?
Yes, there's a far lower voter turnout during the midterm elections than there is the presidential election.
Now, can you tell me why is there a difference between midterm and presidential?
It becomes more of a social issue. The presidential election gets far more media coverage. There's a bigger hype over the presidential election versus the midterm election. So people are just more apt to go vote during the presidential than the midterm.
And of course, the presidential election draws much more national attention. It's obviously a bigger election due to the fact that it is one person versus many in a House and of course the Senate. What are the different methods of voting available to citizens?
Well, during the last couple weeks, there was the option to go vote early at the election commissioner's office, and then voter or absentee ballots are available early, and then 195 places, as I said before, will be open for polling tomorrow.
Wow. Well, thank you again for joining me. I'm going to send you guys back to Joy and Aaron in the studio.
Thank you, Kelly. The black student population makes up about 2% of students on the University of Nebraska-Lincoln campus. Black students feel their voice might not be heard on campus, but that won't stop them from being vocal during this election.
That affects a lot of people, and it's really misconstrued on how they say it only affects like teenagers and stuff, but there's middle class families that are working at fast food restaurants and they can't provide for their families because they're making $7.25 an hour. Just raising that and giving them a better standard of living, I feel like is really important.
Well, Mecca Slaughter is joining us at the news desk. How are you doing today, Mecca?
I'm doing well.
Well,
Thank
good
you.
to hear. Now, what is one item the ballot that is particularly important to voting for students?
Well, as Ms. Thomas said, one item that is very important is the minimum wage. Raising it from $7.25 to $9 is very important for especially college students, because when you graduate college, you want to find that job. You want to find that job that's going to sustain you from now until whenever. So with more money in your bank and more money you're gaining, then you have, opportunities to get more stuff. And as she also said that there are minimum wage families that are making small amounts of money who have to try to buy school supplies, send children to college and stuff like that. And if they're not able to do that on $7.25 an hour, then there needs to be a vote to raise the minimum wage.
Even though there is such a small number of minority students on campus, are they serious about voting?
They are very serious about voting. I am actually the president of the Black Student Government on campus, and I have members who are trying to get other students to vote, making sure other students are registered to vote, because it is very important to the minority students on campus. It's not just something that's going to pass tomorrow. It's something that they are very focused on.
All right, well, thank you very much, Mecca. This could be a good year for women in Nebraska politics.
Female politicians have the potential to see a net gain of 3 seats this year. However, Star City News reporter Ingrid Holmquist tells us it's not all great news. She joins us in the newsroom.
That's right. Despite the increased number this year, no matter what results during this election, women will remain underrepresented in the Nebraska State Senate.
Tell me about why it is important to have women in the legislature.
Well, it's of course important because women make up half the population at least, and it's important that we have that perspective.
We are about a third of the legislative body right now, and we have the potential to pick up about 3. So we won't quite meet the 50% mark this year for certain.
If all incumbents and first-timers win, there will be 13 women in the legislature. There are 49 members total.
There are 10 women that are currently in the legislature. It's been in the mid-90s, it was as many as 13. And during my time, there was a couple years where there were only 9.
Really what's important is that we have diversity in the legislative body, and that the legislative body reflects the perspectives and viewpoints of the Nebraska citizenry.
Women tend to be very solution-oriented, don't really care as much about getting the credit, by and large, just trying to get to the bottom of a problem and fix it.
Though high-profile women candidates have put female politicians on the board, such as U.S. Senator Deb Fischer and Omaha Mayor Jean Stothert, the push for equality in the state Senate continues to be an issue.
That's something that Senator Christian Gillibrand, who represents New York in Congress, likes to say, and that's whatever your issue is, we need your voice.
Oftentimes, it's the women senators, Democrats and Republicans, who can cross party lines, who can find that common ground, build consensus, and then move legislation forward.
And so we need to help women believe in themselves enough to run, because they are important, and their experience, even if they haven't owned a business or haven't even graduated from college, that doesn't mean their opinion isn't important. All of our opinions are important, and we need that diversity to be represented.
Now let's talk about diversity. It wasn't until 1954 when the first woman was elected into the legislature. Since that time, if you do the math, there really hasn't been that much progress. In 60 years, the highest number of female senators is 13 in 1997. This number has now declined to 11. For Star City News, I'm Ingrid Holmquist.
Nebraska's federal minimum wage increase was last seen in 2006, and another increase will be seen on the ballot this year. The proposal for a minimum wage increase is called Initiative 425. If it passes, the minimum wage would increase from $7.25 to $9 an hour. Supporters believe this will create an economy boost. Those that oppose Initiative 425 say it will hurt many local business owners and could increase unemployment. Economists argue that there will be no effect on the economy.
And now, as it's getting colder, let's talk about the weather. Meteorologist Casey Caranda is here in the studio to tell us how the weather tomorrow could have an effect on voters heading to the polls. Casey?
Thank you, Joy. All right, so as you can see, we have wonderful weather going on today. So in terms of voter turnout, you have 1%, there's a 1% decline when rain is forecasted at all. But when it is rainy, the Republican presidential candidate receives an extra 2.5% in every election. And the undecided voters are 35% less likely to go out and vote when there's any inclement weather whatsoever. So actually currently here in Lincoln, it is 62 degrees, mostly cloudy and breezy with a west-southwest wind at 10 to 15 miles per hour. We also have in Omaha, it's about 64 degrees. York, 61 degrees. Lincoln, here is 62, as I said, and then 62 down in Beatrice. So it is a wonderful day throughout the entire state.
Well, thank you, Casey.
After the break, Mecca Slaughter is going to take over me with Aaron to discuss the Senate race.
And we'll be continuing the reporting debriefing in the newsroom.
I'm sorry.
University of Nebraska-Lincoln Extension. We've been your partner for 100 years in everything related to your family, your business, your community, and our state. Extension shares your best interests and delivers research-based information that you can trust. Extension works right beside you on your farm, on your ranch, in your community, with your youth. 100 years young and just getting started. Hi, I'm Dean Chuck Hibbard, and we are UNL Extension. Whether it's food production, environmental stewardship, human nutrition, business development, or youth engagement, you can count on our leading-edge, research-based information. UNL Extension, responsive, innovative, and trusted.
Welcome back. Mecca Slaughter is here with me now to host the second half of the show.
That's right. The Nebraska Senate race is in big national respect, with the Republicans vying to get back the state Senate majority. Star City reporter Dustin Hoffman was in Hastings just a few days ago when Mitt Romney stopped by to show support for the Republicans. We have Star City News' Dustin Hoffman live in the studio with more.
Ben Sasse is that Republican candidate running for the spot, but has stiff competition from Democratic candidate Dave Domina. Both have ran their campaigns in very different ways, but they each think they have a very good shot at winning it. Mitt Romney joined candidate Ben Sasse in Hastings a week ago to help aid the Republicans to get another Senate seat.
Because Ben Sasse, he's doing pretty darn well in this race. You know that?
Romney's presence brought in a lot of Republican voters who could help decide this race.
To see so many people, some of whom voted for me. I think you guys did, didn't you?
Sasse, who is finishing his campaign of 93 counties in 93 days, says it is important to reach these communities.
What happens in our local communities? It's about where farmers and ranchers produce and feed the world. It's where small business women and small businessmen create jobs.
Using theatrics by bringing in heavy hitter Mitt Romney may go over well with some, but his competition does not think so.
Well, actually, I think it's just great because it confesses that he knows this race is one that is in serious doubt. He's looking for a way to take the attention off his own shortcomings and put it on somebody else, hoping Nebraskans won't focus on the fact that Ben Sasse isn't ready to be a U.S. Senator.
Domina questions how Sasse could be an effective leader with what he's shown so far.
He hasn't appeared for debates. He's avoided contact with Nebraska voters. He's obviously afraid he'll make a mistake. And I think he's proven that he's not ready for the United States Senate, which is pretty rough and tumble debate.
Thanks, Dustin.
While falling behind in veterans benefits, Nebraska legislators is scrambling to figure out how to keep the state's retired warriors local. With benefits that are much more appealing in other states, veterans are wondering what's this upcoming election has to offer. Here's Star City's Rachel Hofstra with more.
What can we do to keep veterans in Nebraska?
That's the question on the minds of many Nebraska veterans as the election nears. With Nebraska being behind the curve in veterans benefits, many are wondering why they would stay in the state.
Because if you're a veteran and you're not disabled, there's really no benefit of living in Nebraska. Nebraska is one of 11 states in the United States that are the only states that do not give tax relief or any type of income relief to veterans.
This makes current military members believe that veterans deserve better benefits in Nebraska.
I feel veterans should receive tax cuts and benefits due to the fact that they served their country in the past. So, as an appreciation, I feel like we need to give something back for all their countless hours of hard work and dedication that they put within the military of their past experiences.
Many service members will be keeping a close eye on the election, hoping candidates bring increased benefits in order to keep retirees local.
There was a single mother veteran that was disabled from her deployment to Iraq, and she left with her 5 kids to South Carolina because South Carolina built her a brand new house.
Whether it be 1 week in a month with the reserves or every day with active duty, every U.S. military member has a certain amount of expectations and standards they have to meet. Many times they even risk their lives for their careers. Now, does this deserve tax exemptions and other benefits? Well, that's up to you and the legislature to decide. Reporting with Star City News, I'm Rachel Hofstra.
Rachel is live in the studio with Xavier with more.
Hi, I'm Xavier with Rachel Hofstra. And what other benefits
also get quite a bit of education benefits, whether it be 75% or 100% of their tuition getting paid. Also, as the veterans exit their military career and enter their civilian career, there's a program that helps them adjust to that type of life and find a new job for them. And among smaller benefits, they also offer discounts on driver's license and some discounts on hunting and fishing license as well.
Okay, if we have so many benefits, then why are we still so far behind?
Well, Nebraska's benefits are not as substantial as many of the other states have, and also our benefits are written in a way that doesn't allow all veterans to use these benefits, and it limits what they have.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys.
There's a tobacco-free alternative to cigarettes that has Nebraska legislators concerned. Star City's Brent Bonfler is live in the newsroom with more.
They're called e-cigs, and they become extremely popular, especially among teens. And that's what has doctors and some state senators up in arms.
Despite what it looks like, this isn't smoke. It's water vapor, and it's coming from an e-cigarette, the popular electronic alternative to traditional cigarettes, and what some former smokers say helped them quit.
I was a 2-pack-a-day smoker since I was 13, and honestly, I don't even smoke cigarettes anymore.
While many have turned to e-cigs as a healthier alternative to regular cigarettes, medical experts warn that they aren't harmless.
This is kind of like when you get into political campaigns, that it's the lesser of two evils. If you have the choice between doing the cigarette or the e-cigarette, yes, the e-cigarette is going to be less toxic, less amount of chemical that you're going to be getting than what the regular cigarette is going to do.
Because of the exotic flavors and custom devices available, e-cigs have become extremely popular among teens.
There's been a lot of high schools that are contemplating if they're going to let kids have them. If not, there was absolutely no age limit on them, so theoretically a 5-year-old kid could have gotten them, and I just don't think there's been enough testing on them to say that they're safe.
18-year-old Trevor Hennig, who has been smoking e-cigs for just a few months, says he thinks the law isn't focused on banning the right thing.
I understand where they're coming from, but in my opinion, I don't think there's really no reason to prohibit the sale of, like, the e-cigarettes themselves. But I do think sale of juice with nicotine in it should be restricted.
For Star City News, I'm Brent Baumfluer.
Hi, I'm Xavier Jackson here with Brent Bonfleur, and who is it that is attracted to these e-cigarettes these days?
Well, there's a lot of younger people smoking e-cigarettes. They find them a lot more appealing and sexier than normal cigarettes. But I talked to a salesman at an e-cigarette store here in Lincoln, and he actually said that a lot of older people have been smoking them as a way to help them get off of traditional cigarettes.
And with the rise in popularity in e-cigarettes, are they actually harmful to health?
That's the question that's on a lot of people's minds. And currently there is no FDA regulation regarding e-cigs. And I talked to some people at the Nebraska Health and Human Services Department, and they said that, quite frankly, they just don't have enough information to know whether or not they are actually bad for you.
And what is it about e-cigarettes that make them so appealing compared to traditional cigarettes?
Well, I talked to one e-cig smoker, and he said it was the appealing flavors and aromas and also the different devices you can have to smoke these e-cigarettes that drew him to them over regular cigarettes.
Okay, well, thank you for coming in today.
All right, thanks, guys. Well, we have John here in the studio to discuss sports-related topics on the ballot. John?
Complicated issue in whether the pay student athletes has been going on for decades. The issue was reignited when former members of the Northwestern football team attempted to unionize earlier this year. Star City's Tanner Westall has more on if unions will ever come to fruition.
Winner is Cam Newton of Auburn University.
A Nebraska representative believes athletes should be paid. When two former Heisman Trophy winners were involved in scandals, where one had their trophy revoked and probation for their university when they received improper benefits.
And these players put in more time than even professors or any student, and they are in an inherently dangerous occupation. Even men and women in prison are paid for the work that they do.
Wristbands like these have been beginning to pop up all around college football. College athletes want part of the revenue that universities create. They begin wearing wristbands with the letters APU, which stands for All Players United. All Players United turn in petition to labor unions to be considered as employees. If recognized, football players will be paid to perform while keeping their scholarships. But Ernie Chambers already passed a law that says Nebraska is ready to pay athletes only if other states follow suit. But Nebraska President Harvey Perlman doesn't believe states will follow.
I don't think there is strong support for turning intercollegiate athletics into a professional activity.
Nebraska won't be affected as much as other colleges, as it ranked 13th in the country in revenue made last year, with $55.8 million. From Star City News, I'm Tanner Westerholt reporting.
We are here with Tanner Westerholt. And Tanner, why do you think these talks about paying athletes are so important these days?
Well, currently right now, there are tons of athletes out there are receiving improper benefits from a third party, which is causing universities and those athletes themselves to be suspended, and they are losing their eligibility to be playing their sports they have worked so hard to achieve.
What do you think the consequences of paying these athletes are for the schools?
Well, currently the schools get fined, and right now they lose scholarships, and their sporting teams also take a big hit.
Last question real fast. What side do you think is winning right now? What side do you think has more public support?
Currently, the public supports are against paying athletes, but if you ask any athletes, they want the extra money. So it's basically a balance, 50-50.
Gotcha. Thanks, Tanner. Well, as we've learned more and more about concussions, it's become abundantly clear that these are very serious injuries. It's become abundantly clear that they're very serious injuries, and as these high school teachers and coaches are learning, they don't really know how to properly handle these concussions. There is currently a bill in the legislature right now that will change that, giving these teachers and coaches the resources to better handle the injured students. Devin Cleach has more.
The Return to Learn bill helps students get back into the classroom after a concussion, but Brady Barron did not have this program to fall back on.
I do not remember what happened at all that night. My last memory was getting in trouble for doing something that I shouldn't have been doing that summer before my birthday on August 9th.
Just over 10 years ago, it was right here on this very field where these two teams met. Brady made the choice to re-enter the game after suffering a concussion. That decision almost killed him. Brady suffered a second impact concussion on the field. where the main artery on the brain burst following a first concussion he did not tell anyone about. The bill, introduced by Senator Steve Lathrop, will allow for everyone involved to be more aware of how to assist student athletes after injuries.
And to ensure that not only are we paying attention to when can they go back to the field and compete again, but also making sure that they have the assistance.
Brady has already graduated from high school and college, though he believes this bill will be beneficial for future student athletes.
It'd be a huge blessing to help students and their families and school staff realize that rest is a key component, but also just taking it easy and taking it one day, one step at a time.
After 5 major surgeries and over a month in a coma, Brady still has a smile on his face and has a great sense of humor. For Star City News, I'm Devin Cleach reporting.
Here with Devin Cleach. And Devin, one quick question. Why do you think the state of Nebraska has introduced this bill now?
The second bill in a 2-part series. The first bill was to put regulations on who could enter the back on the field after a concussion. This time it's to educate teachers on how to treat a student that has suffered a concussion to help with their learning abilities back in the classroom.
That's going to do it for the sports and politics. Throw it back now to Aaron and Mecca.
After the break, we will discuss the state auditor race.
I need your mic. Meet Justin. He's a cycling enthusiast who always wears his helmet and uses proper hand signals when stopping or making a turn. This is Nick. He's all over the road, doesn't wear a helmet, and does not use proper hand signals. To signal turning right, hold your left arm upright at a 90-degree angle. When stopping, hold your left arm downward at a 90-degree angle. And to turn left, hold your left arm straight out to your side. If everyone uses proper hand signals, the roads will be a safer place for cyclists and drivers alike. This message brought to you by the Nebraska Department of Roads.
There's something about this community. The people, the friendships, the traditions that makes you want to be a part of it. It's not a singular idea or defining characteristic. It's a bond. Here we earned more than a degree. This place helped us become who we are today. We are Nebraska. Here, we know what it means to be part of something big. We know the meaning of a strong community and the importance of teamwork. We're kind, we're innovative, we are hardworking, and we always have been. We're loyal and spirited, and we believe in the things that matter. We come together to support our school and each other. We are fans. We are friends. We are alumni.
Welcome back to Star City News pre-election coverage.
2 former state senators are now looking to hold a new position in the state capitol. David Gass has more on this story.
Former state senators Amanda McGill and Charlie Jansen are fighting for a chance to handle your state funds here in Nebraska. McGill says during her time in office, she witnessed financial flaws firsthand. Although McGill plans on following in the footsteps of Mike Foley when it comes to investigating departmental flaws, she feels that there are a few changes that need to be made in the auditor's office.
I would have a different approach and attitude to the position that isn't just about finding those problems and getting some headlines out of them, but to really work with legislators, the governor, department heads, to find solutions to those problems.
Rather than making headlines, McGill says that she wants important issues to be heard by those who can make a difference.
I want to create a bridge of information so that information the auditor's office is getting is really being heard by legislators and the governor, people who can make executive decisions and pass laws.
Her opponent, Charlie Jansen, says that after holding a position as president at RTG Medical, he has the experience that Nebraskans need in the auditor's office. Jansen stated,
All right, well, Xavier is in the newsroom with David to take a deeper look at the state auditor race.
Xavier Jackson here with David Gass. David, have there been any issues that McGill and Jensen have had opposing opinions on?
One thing that they have had an issue with is Bill LB 48. Essentially, LB 48 will enable state officers here in Nebraska to pull over those who look as if they're in the state illegally. So if an officer sees somebody who they assume is an illegal immigrant, they can pull them over at that time and ask them for their papers.
Has there been anything similar to LB 48 implemented in other states?
There is actually. In Arizona, they implemented something called SB 1070, which is essentially the same thing. They implemented that in 2010, And that's one of the biggest steps towards anti-immigration that's happened within the United States.
And how's that working out for Arizona?
There's definitely differing sides on how people feel that it's going. There's one side who believes that it's kind of racial profiling, while the other believes that it's helping eliminate illegal immigrants within the states.
Okay. Thank you for stopping by, David.
Thanks, Xavier.
Well, the Nebraska unicameral legislature is the one and only House state legislature in the entire country, and Dr. Chairlyn Barron says that it runs very differently from your typical two-house government in both size and structure.
It's because it's smaller, it's more efficient, because there aren't those two houses, you don't have the conference committees. You can see everything that happens, in the committee system, on the floor. People can watch the bill from start to finish, and it goes pretty fast relative to many other places.
Now we have Zach with us to tell us more about the unicameral. Now, Zach, is a unicameral really nonpartisan?
Yes, it's nonpartisan, meaning first, the candidates' political parties won't appear on the ballot. Also, the legislative officers and committee chairs won't be decided by party members. They'll be decided by the members of the legislature. Now, every issue that comes along, the senator at the core of that issue will have to sway a majority to his side, but he can't just guarantee that if he's a Democrat, he can't just assume all Democrats will vote for him. It just doesn't work like that. Currently, the majority of the members in the legislature are Republicans, but the majority of committee chairs are Democrats.
Now, has Nebraska always been a unicameral?
No, originally we were a two-house system like the rest of the country, but then in 1937, in an initiative referendum, we voted to change to a one-house system to, simplify things.
All right, well, thank you very much, Zach. The unicameral may be nonpartisan, but some of the ads for other races are as polarizing as ever. What do the viewers get out of political ads? Star City's Joy Carey brings us more.
Don't support billions in Medicare cuts, patients losing doctors, Nebraskans losing their health coverage, or Nebraska healthcare premiums up 31%.
When people understand what's in the health reform, they will support it.
Liberal Chuck Hasselbrook, the wrong prescription for Nebraska.
Ricketts is trying to buy the election with negative ads backed by his billionaire father, just like he did with John Bruning.
I don't think political ads are meant to really teach people about issues.
I have seen some stuff on YouTube that's been pretty negative and nasty.
Instead of going through all the effort to kind of explain what this person did and explain what you're going to do, it's easier to sum up what that person did as being wrong and what you're going to do is right, even if you don't have a concrete plan.
How about Chuck Hasselbrook?
Chuck what?
No, Chuck Hasselbrook. He's running for governor.
Oh, the guy that's running against that bald son of a billionaire.
Yeah, Pete Ricketts. So, Big Bucks Bull.
Big Bucks Bull?
Yeah, because he's definitely got the big bucks, and he sure tosses the ball.
It makes you not want to vote for either candidate, really. At least for me, I always think this isn't a real argument, it's not a real discussion.
So there's those just broad sweeping statements of, I'm going to create jobs.
Pete will grow jobs in Nebraska, not government.
And you're like, how are you going to create jobs? Who are you going to create jobs for?
Will you choose somebody you trust? Here's my invitation.
Nebraska conservative who will repeal Obamacare and cut spending.
I would hope that people wouldn't make those snap judgments based on 30-second ad.
That's all we have for you today with Star City News' pre-election coverage. Just a reminder that polls open at 8 a.m. tomorrow and close at 8 p.m.
If you're not sure where your polling place is, you can always call the election office at 402-441-7311. Again, thank you for joining us today on our special election pre-election coverage. I'm Aaron Trout.
And I'm Mecca Slaughter. Have a good evening.